All right, welcome to the Freedom of Joy show here on Truth Cat Radio. Thank you so much for tuning in tonight. You know what? I'm going to bring my guest on here in just a few minutes. He should be contacting us very shortly. And I'm going to give you a little bit of background on what the show's going to be about tonight. And we have been interviewing several different writers lately that just have been absolutely ripped off by Hollywood. And apparently the industry they're just shameless. It looks like they are the uh, evil Illuminati, satanic, awful human beings that we imagine them to be. Uh, the old joke used to be if you were dating someone, like for a woman, right? It would be like, oh, is he a doctor, or does he have something substantial? And if your answer was, I'm going out with a writer, they'd be like, oh, okay, and then you're just going to be broke for the rest of your life. That's writing is like a pipe dream for some people, right? But some people are actually really good writers, and even if you sell a script, you have Time Warner completely ripping you off. Recently, I just did an interview with Sophia Stewart. That's also a really big case. She has actually won her case, but she had her script stolen as well by the Wachowski brothers for The Matrix, as well as Terminator for James Cameron. And it's unbelievable. I mean, really, literally, Sophia said that the Wachowski brothers and James Cameron could not show up to the trial because they would have been arrested if they showed up, and they can still be arrested. I don't think that she's actually received the money for it for the shows yet. Her lawsuit. I mean, you can win a lawsuit, but that doesn't necessarily mean you're going to ever get paid from these people either. So again, you have the writer, you have your script being lost, you have they have their legal team, they'll forge documents, they'll do whatever they can to take ideas and scripts away. A script is like a patent. It's like an invention. It's a creation. And the writer, without the script, without the writer, you basically don't have a story. And without a story, you don't have a film, and you don't have a crew, and you don't have a lighting crew and a film crew and a director or actors or people going to the movie theater. You don't have any of those things unless you have the basic structure of a story and a reason for somebody to come in and listen or be inspired or whatever else can happen when there's a good story. And unfortunately, people, it seems like really big films, even money-making series, end up being stolen from people, and it's really unfortunate to see it happening. So, until he gets here, I'm just gonna, keep talking to you guys for a minute. There's a few other things that I can definitely go into. Okay, yeah, he just is getting off the plane. He's flying into LA right now, actually. And you know what? Let me just kind of give you a little bit of a background on him too, as well. All right, and if you want to check him out, and if you're at a computer right now and you want to take a look at this while I'm on the radio, you can go to the realjohnq.com. And it's got, he's also written a book called The Nose of Men, The Yes of God. And his name is Chatunda Tillman Sr., and he is one of the most prolific writers of our time. Mr. Tillman has had several inventions featured in the Chicago Sun-Times, the Chicago Defender, and the Citizens newspapers. It is now that he must tell his unapologetic truth about the feature film John Q, fighting against the conglomerate Warner, the judges, and the corrupt lawyers. When man tells him no, God told him yes, allowing him to warn us of the pitfalls in the life and the movie business. It's the brutal truth about the theft of a feature film cue, how they stole my money, and how I fought to get it back. And so, if you want to look at that, it's on the. You can take a look at the website here. And John Q, the script that we're looking at here, was a movie. It was made in 2002. It's called John Q, and it stars Denzel Washington. Basically, the character Denzel Washington has a sick young boy, his son, and he has a heart problem. He needs a heart transplant, and he doesn't have health insurance or coverage to get that heart transplant. So apparently he just kind of, after several attempts to get the money and to save his son's life, he goes a little nuts and takes some people hostage. And there's a big negotiation, and it's got Ray Liotta in it, and it looks like it's a good movie. It probably did pretty well at the box office back in the day in 2002, and so now it's 2017. It's 15 years later, and he's still fighting to get the rights to a script. He wrote an original script. He actually registered it with the Writers Guild, because that's what we do when we want to copyright something. You register it with the Writers Guild to make sure that people can't steal your idea. They can't, and it's very important that you do that, or so we're told as writers. Or if you have a TV idea or a series idea, you want to copyright it with the Writers Guild. I believe it's something like, I don't know, $25 or $50. It's not that much to register your script, and it's supposed to protect you. And it looks like he did everything he was supposed to. He had it registered. It was underneath another name. And we're going to find out here for the moment. It wasn't originally called John Q. But I'm looking at his website, and I've been looking at other documents and videos that he has. And it definitely looks like he has the paperwork. He has the original copyright document of the script. He's definitely, put scenes from the movie on his website, and as well as the dialogue, and then comparing his script that he wrote, and as well as his original script and the dialogue in the movie to prove that it's obviously lifted from his script. Again, sometimes this is what the industry does. It's sort of a unstated rumor or a warning that we all have. A lot of times, even with comedians, we'll have a script idea or a movie idea that we wrote, or a sitcom idea, or anything that we feel that we want to pitch to the networks. You got to be really careful when you go in and pitch stuff, because you can go in and pitch something to them, a very innovative idea, and again, if you don't have the right protection, or even if you do have the right protection, you go in, you pitch your project. Maybe you might even do a performance right there in front of a few casting people or producers. I actually worked on a project one time where it was going to be they were looking to do a series where there was singing and topical news. So a little bit of singing. It was like, I guess there was an old show back in like the 70s where it was kind of a variety show, and they were wanting to sing. And so we pitched it. We got really close. We went to Newcastle and Showtime, and even at one point, this is how crazy the business is. Even at one point, they were going to give us a pilot for Showtime, and then the guy that gave us the green light actually got fired like a month later, and a new executive came in, and of course that guy wasn't interested. So I mean, there's so many stories of just kind of getting really close up there. But when you finally do get a script done, and you do register it, and you do all the proper things that you need to protect yourself as an artist, and these big conglomerates still end up stealing your idea and your script. So my point is that when you go in and you pitch stuff, okay, the thing of it is, be careful about you pitching it, because they can take any idea they want, switch a few characters around, and then there you go. There's your script. They could probably say, oh, well, I thought of it too, or it just happens to be two concepts at the same time, but they were all done. And there's so many ways to argue it. who owns their creative right. So anyways, he's going to be coming on here in just a moment, and I'm looking forward to having him join the show. Again, this is Conspiracy Comedy Wednesday, and I'm Terry Joyce. I like to talk about things that are going on in the entertainment business sometimes. I mean, you might not think that this is really relevant to this particular kind of media, but I think it is in many ways because the entertainment industry is socially engineering us. And I've been saying that over and over again. Being a person that has worked in Hollywood and then waking up like I am now. I mean, when I worked in the industry, I was not aware of an Illuminati or a global elite or anything like that. I basically had stars in my eyes and thought that just like politics, any one of us can make something out of ourselves and become an artist. I mean, I like art. I like creating. I like doing stand-up. I like being part of the entertainment business. I like being around creative people. I think stories and humor and art lifts the humanities. It's one way of reaching each other, connecting us in the heart, in our heart chakra, awakening us. I mean, even looking at the Matrix, just think about what the Matrix has done for this particular genre of radio. We have a show here on Truth Cat Radio, Beyond the Matrix. It opened our mind into realizing that we are existing in a matrix. It's a story that helps us wake up, helps us become, the one. Everyone has the opportunity to become the one and be that spark of change and goodness in the world and getting us out of the matrix. I mean, that's what the story is, and I also learned that it's man versus machine, and that the Terminator is just another part of the Matrix. Like John Connor in the Terminator is basically Neo. He's just on different timelines and being incarnated and having different, but it's basically the same story and the same character. And even Matrix 4 actually it incorporates that. It does merge those two storylines together. As people, we have free will. We live in a free will reality. And this is how it works. That's the whole Hollywood thing. It's the holly tree. It's the sorcerer's wand, the occult. These things are all really happening. Jimmy Kimmel's show is taped at a Masonic hall. I mean, I've been talking about this I've been on a rant about that lately. I mean, let's even talk about the Manchester bombing. Just think about who that is. It's Ariana Grande. She's just the same as Nicki Minaj. I mean, all of the puppets for the Illuminati, the ones that come for the children that come out there, of course there's going to be a false flag happening. This is the attraction. This is how these things happen. The entertainment has a lot of influence, and they don't care about taking your influence and not paying you for it. That seems to be very commonplace with Hollywood. And so anyways, I'm looking forward to having Mr. Tillman come on the show and talk with us and give us his insight and his experiences in Hollywood and his script. And also just think about what the script is too. This is about healthcare. It's about caring about people. Of course, there's a character that's going out of control because he can't save his child's life. But it's an important issue, and even today, it's an important issue because our healthcare, the Obamacare, obviously is not perfect, and we have Trump trying to tweak that, and we still have issues, and we still deal with big pharma, and we still deal with the American Medical Association, and there's this feeling that there's a list of people that matter. and a list of people that don't matter, right? And either you have enough money to be able to pay for what matters. You can actually pay for a cure for AIDS, or you can pay for all these different things, or you're in the system, you're on Medi-Cal, you're going to get generic medication. You're not going to get a transplant. You're an old cow on the way out. So when you live in a slave system, the people who are the slaves in our society aren't going to get, and they're not going to get good health care. When you finally sell something, when you finally get a TV show, when you finally get a book made, or it's published and it's out there, and you're like, wow, here it is. You may not sell another script or a book or get another show for the rest of your life. All right. So if you're going to have like a huge hit that makes a lot of money, or even just like a certain amount of money, you could live off of that sometimes for the rest of your life. It's a nasty business, and we get blinded. We think everybody's nice. People don't look over their contracts correctly. And obviously, registering with the Writers Guild means absolutely nothing. If this kind of stuff is going on. If they're actually, because according to what I'm looking at here, and again, he's probably going to be here in the next few minutes because he said his plane just landed. So he should be calling in here any moment to be on the show. But, from what I can tell, he was definitely taken advantage of. I mean, he's got the right documents. If you look at the site, it's definitely there. So he should be. So this should be a good conversation tonight. So I'm looking forward to having him call in. Here's the update on my guest. Actually, he is checking into the hotel. So he should be joining us in about 15 minutes here. So he probably will be here pretty soon.
Hey, we got you now. Hey.
Thank you.
Well, well, you know what? I'm so glad that you made it to the show here, and so now, and you're just back in LA.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, well, let's talk a little bit about your case. I actually pulled up your website, and gave people a little bit of an overview, and I said that you're at your website is at the realjohnq.com, and so
yes,
the original script, from what I can tell, that the original script you registered with the Writers Guild. What was it, like 1993? What was it?
1998.
1998.
Yes,
okay.
Yes, ma'am. I can I give you a little background real quick?
Sure, please do.
Okay,
Yeah.
so first of all, I want to say thank you guys for bringing me onto the show. I really appreciate it, and I want to say hello to all of your listeners. And I have a very compelling story to tell. So to give you the short version, in 1998, I lived an experience with a heart situation because one of my children was suffering a heart condition, and I didn't have insurance to pay for it. And so dealing with the hospital and their aggressive stand on not proceeding with the surgery unless I had insurance or money to pay for it was very difficult. When in this country, we have money for wars and things of that nature, and I was working 2 jobs, but I still didn't have enough insurance to pay for it. And so while I was at the hospital, going through this pain, I just decided to write in order to channel that emotion into a constructive outlet. And so that's where the script was born. My original script was called KHOG, which I copyrighted in 1998. And then in 1998, I became a member of the Writers Guild West in California. And during a couple of conferences, myself and the Writers Guild, they said, Mr. Tillman, we love your script. And they asked me specifically who I wanted to star in the film. At that point, I told them, I said, I want Denzel Washington or Cuba Gooding Jr. to play my character, because as an African-American man, those were 2 of the top African-American artists. So I wanted them to help me convey my message positively. And so nothing happened after the 4 or 5 months of 98 when they finished using me for the information. And it wasn't until late 2002 that I saw the film John Q, starring Denzel Washington and New Line Cinema, Time Warner produced, etc. And so it was just extremely troubling for me when I found out, because remember, they didn't do a trailer. Now, they went back and did trailers after the fact, but at the initial time, they didn't do a trailer, because had I seen a trailer, I could have gotten an injunction to stop the release of the film until I got paid or compensated. And so the credited writer, his name was James Kearns, he worked for the Writers Guild. And so he worked at the...
Really?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. And he worked at the same place where my screenplay was at. And so what happened was, in court, you know, because I beat them on the merits of the case, if I may, before I take your question, in order to survive summary judgment in a district court, I only needed to prove 4 elements. 1, originality. 2, access. 3, similarities, which there were over 100 similarities between my screenplay, my original screenplay, the feature film John Q starring Denzel Washington, and the script that James Kearns submitted into court as his original work, and citizenship. And those were the 4 elements I needed to prove. And unfortunately, you know, dealing with this justice system here in this country, they conspired against me to violate my civil and constitutional rights, at which point I had to ultimately take the case to, I had to file a writ for certiorari at the Supreme Court. And in the district court, you can actually hear me in court. If you go to therealjohnq.com, scroll to the bottom, you can actually hear Court Audio 1 and Court Audio 2, where you hear me fighting against Time Warner, myself and my attorneys, fighting against Time Warner over the feature film John Q with Denzel. And you can actually hear the fact that Time Warner and New Line Cinema never answered a single interrogatory. For 2 years, they refused to produce any original documents. They refused to answer any questions because I beat them on the merits of the case. And if I may, it's something that you and your listeners need to know. Part of this is the judges in my case said, you know, they basically stripped my rights away little by little by saying that, well, the copyright doesn't matter in your case. It doesn't matter if they had access to your screenplay because they didn't read it. It wasn't their job or responsibility to say that they had access to my script but didn't read it. That's for a jury to decide. Now, let me read some. Let me share something with you. The credited writer James Kearns swore in court that he never worked for the Writers Guild, but here's his Social Security number: 030348510. And here's one of the checks that the Writers Guild paid him. If I may, check number 2105069 for $33,260.62. Now, of course, I have other checks that they wrote him in the hundreds of thousands of dollars. But the point I'm making is he worked for the Writers Guild. Now, if he shared copyright credit with New Line Cinema and Time Warner, why is the Writers Guild cutting him a check if he didn't work for them? The same place that my screenplay was at during his tenure there. Now, because I beat them on the merits of the case, they created a fraudulent article from Hollywood Reporter and Daily Variety. And so in court, I asked Judge George Morton Denlow, Judge Norberg, and Judge Connelly in my case, I said, gentlemen, if Time Warner, New Line Cinema, and James Kearns share copyright credit, then why did the Writers Guild pay James Kearns? Interestingly enough, my screenplay was at the Writers Guild when he was there. So because the 3 of us were concurrently working with one another, that's a reasonable opportunity for him to view my work. And so it was erroneous for the judge to say, well, they had your screenplay but didn't look at it. Back to the article, which they created to try to predate my screenplay, if I may.
Sure.
They gave me a Variety.com article supposedly proving prior creation for 1993 because they tried to go back and backdate their writer's guild certificates to predate mine because I beat them on the copyright. And these individuals will stop at nothing. But long story short, Variety.com, the website wasn't created until 1996. So how do you give me a 1993 Variety.com article from a source that wasn't created till 3 years after? And then they gave me a daily Variety in 98. Well, that's when you have my script. But what I find troubling, extremely troubling, is that they gave me a Hollywood Reporter article from 1994 that's supposed to prove that James Kearns wrote John Q. My question to you, ma'am, is why James Kearns' name wasn't in the article, nor Denzel Washington's name was in the article. So it was just a lot of fabricated documents to try to prove prior creation when it would not otherwise exist. And so I've been fighting the good fight for the last 10 or 15 years. And I want to say that I really appreciate you guys bringing me onto the show, because you guys have been championing the cause for the common man for so long. And I don't want to go too far into what you guys have done, but I really appreciate what you guys have done. You know what I'm saying? So I'll take any questions before I finish, if you have any.
Oh, well, I mean, thank you for saying that. And it's good to meet you because, and again, I really want to bring you back on again. I hope you'll be, I don't know what you're doing next week, but maybe after we finish the show here, we can have a conversation, and I can give you a couple more dates, and we can definitely do something again here on TruthCat.
Absolutely.
And go into a little bit more detail. But yeah, I thank you for recognizing that we are about, helping out man and getting some of these things to light. I'd like to know, well, okay, I worked in the entertainment business too, and so and when you first get into it, you think it's pretty naive. We're pretty naive. You think that if you register
as I was,
yeah, and then you realize that there's all this deception going on. You're not the first to have your script stolen, and then you understand, and you also realize that there's a whole team of people that are willing to lie on a level that is just beyond comprehension.
Absolutely. If I may jump in, because you just hit it on the head. Now let me explain something to you. It was the Most High, and I'm not a fan of religion, only for the simple fact that in the name of God and etc. America has done a lot of damage to other countries in the name of Christianity. But I do believe in the Most High, the chief architect who created man, who gave me the intuition to copyright KHOG, aka John Q. Because here's the thing, I was in my early 20s when I lived this hard experience, and I wrote about it. But what did I know about copywriting at 20? I didn't. It was God that gave me that intuition. And I'm glad I did, because that's how I was able to survive in court for so long. Now, of course, and like you said, the rabbit hole goes so deep. Let me explain something to you real quick. When I copywrote my screenplay, I did not know that it would be a subsequent chain of reactions just from doing that, just from becoming a member of the Writers Guild, where they was trying to stroke my ego, which I don't have an ego. So they was trying to stroke my ego and say, for 4 months, Mr. Tillman, we love the script. You can have anybody you want to star in it. I chose Denzel. They said, okay, you can have Denzel. And then when I end up having to sue them in court, Denzel Washington, in counsel with my attorneys, said specifically, Mr. Tillman, if you let me out of the case, I'll cut you a check. I'll break bread with you. And Denzel Washington never kept his word. And so he claims to be this community activist, this doer of good. And, you're going around doing speeches talking about fall forward when you won't keep your word to honor your word, because you made $50 million off my pain and suffering. And I have nothing against Mr. Washington. In fact, I chose him for the part, and I defended him when Sony was disrespectful to him about his marketability overseas. In my book that you could get at therealjohnq.com, I specifically defended this man because I have nothing against him. But I expect you to keep your word and be honorable, because the company that you keep are not honorable men. Time Warner made $250 million off of John Q. and I have a family. They know my struggles, and you could have simply cut me a check that was fair market value, and I would have been done with it. And I could have been on my third or fourth film by now with the recognition that John Q made. And my question to you is, why John Q didn't get an Oscar? Because they know that I would have had to get that. So what they did was gave him an Oscar for Training Day, of course, where the African-American man is portrayed in a negative light, as opposed to John Q, the African-American father, is taking care of business, trying to do what's best for his son. Now, I'm no respecter person. I'm going to read a quote from Malcolm X, if I may. Malcolm X said, basically, and I'm going to sum it up, I don't care what your color is, as long as you care about helping me change the conditions on this planet. And that's what I live by. But the reality is, a white man got credit for writing John Q, and Time Warner is all ran by the Jewish faith or the Jewish population. And so what I'm saying is, I don't care if you white, black, brown, Jewish, Gentile, it doesn't matter to me. As long as you stand for justice and the righteous, I can support that. And I need all of your listeners to support the cause. Because like you said, me fighting the industry, I've taken a tremendous hit. I spent over 6 figures fighting them. But guess what? It was worth it because I kept my manhood, I kept my dignity, and I'm out here fighting a good fight. Now, I want to give homage and pay homage to Miss Sophia Stewart because she's the mother of the Matrix, and she's been fighting this battle a long time. And I have to give credit where credit is due, and she was gracious enough to write the foreword to my book because change is coming, and it's a movement, and we have to galvanize and point all of our energy and direction and support the ones like yourself, like myself, like Miss Sophia Stewart, who you can reach at thematrixterminator.com, because we are out here fighting a good fight. Because what a lot of people don't know is that there are hundreds of other people who have had their work stolen, who didn't get the light of day, who don't have a voice. And so I'll be that voice. And so Ms. Stewart will be that voice. And we have to continue to get the message out, because otherwise they're going to continue to steal. I remember a time back in the day when they paid people for their work. Now it wasn't a lot of money, but people was getting credit for their work. You know, people back in the day was getting credit for their work, and some idiot decided we can just steal from people and we can just take people's hard work and make hundreds of millions of dollars off of it and not compensate them and not pay them, and that's unacceptable. You know, me going through this experience with my child, watching my child go through the pain and suffering of this heart condition, watching me have to go through the pain and suffering of trying to fight the insurance company and write a story about it where I tried to be a light and I tried to, you know, bring a message of hope, and then that message was taken from me without permission, usurped illegally, which I have a RICO case, and then hundreds of millions of dollars are made, and then from that money, ma'am, they made 7 or 8 other films. So I generated over $1 billion in commerce. And so I got to get that back.
Yeah, that's terrible. That's just criminal.
Yes, ma'am.
I hope you get it back.
Yes, ma'am. And I will. You know, we're right now in a position.
I want to go to the RICO Act is something that Sophia mentioned. Can you let us know how the RICO Act applies to your case and to her case? Yes, ma'am.
And I'm gonna speak for myself on this particular issue because her work is she's global, and so as it relates to my case with the RICO case, it's the racketeering piece and through the mail and wire fraud. See, here's the thing. In my case, in 1998, I submitted my screenplay to the Writers Guild through the commerce, through the mail, through the U.S. mail. They received the check from me and deposited it into their account in California. And so because you took possession of my work and illegally copied it and usurped it, that proves racketeering because there are so many tentacles to this piece. Let me give you an example. The judges in my case said that it doesn't matter if they had access, even though access is one of the key prongs for me to prove my case to show that they had a copy of it. And because the judge said that, yes, they had a copy, but it doesn't matter because they didn't look at it, that was erroneous and illegal. You can't pervert the law because it benefits your self-serving purpose, and then think that I'm just going to lay down. You had access to my screenplay. It's not your job to say that they didn't look at it. But because Time Warner donated money to the president's campaign, the campaign called, Time Warner called their connects in the court system to put these specific judges on my case who were handpicked by judges that y'all put in office by donating to the campaign, and then telling me that my copyright, it doesn't matter that my copyright predates their copyright by 2 years because you gave me this Writer's Guild certificate. And then, ma'am, what's so troubling is they gave me a Writer's Guild certificate from 8955 Beverly Boulevard, when California government records show that there was no Writers Guild functioning out of the office of 8955 Beverly Boulevard in 1993 or 1994. In 1992, the Writers Guild was there, but they moved to 7000 West 3rd, the same address where my script was at, the same address where James Kearns worked, the same address where I just gave you his social security number and his check stubs. See what I'm saying? So they went back and tried to use the old address, thinking that I would never have the resources to go uncover that, but I did. And when I presented that to the court, the judge just ignored it. He said, well, yeah, Mr. Tillman, you did say that they had an office there, and left it at that, instead of telling the truth about saying that they had an office there in 92, not 93, 94. So they tried to go back and create these fraudulent Writers Guild certificates for 93, 94 for James Kearns, when the clock started in 2000, because I have the actual submission for John Q from the Writers Guild itself, ma'am, and it says submitted in 2000. My certificate says submitted in 98. So I beat them on both counts. 1998 comes before 2000 in America at the Writers Guild and at the Copyright Office. So all of this ties into the RICO statute. And so because all of the defendants committed perjury, like let me give an example. James Kearns swore he copywrote John Q in 93, but his copyright says in 2000. And then in court, he says, well, I didn't know you needed a copyright to protect the work. It was so ridiculous. And so it goes on and on. And so, it was erroneous for the judges to protect the defendants when they had no defense. And in fact, when it came to the interrogatories, and I can quote a chapter out of my book, Time Warner refused to answer any questions on the matter. So did James Kearns, so did New Line Cinema, so did the Writers Guild, because I beat them on the merits of the case. And they know that if they answer an interrogatory, we got them dead to rights. And the judge refused to allow me to depose any of the defendants. So how can the little guy win? The little guy can win by fighting back, because it's not about money to me. The Most High is going to bless me to be financially in a position where I'll be in a position to help other people. It's about the journey, and it's about the struggle. And it's about waking people's eyes, because people are so blind. As soon as you turn on the television, this propaganda machine is just continuously trying to lull the people to sleep. But there are some people that's waking up. In Miss Sophia Stewart's case, the Oracle, the MatrixTerminator.com, she's waking people up. I'm waking people up with the RealJohnQ.com. And there's other artists that I'm meeting with this weekend who've had their work stolen, and it's all related to the Writers Guild. So in my research, the Writers Guild is a conduit, is a mechanism to steal people's works, because they make people believe that they can copyright your work to get you in, and then they get you to help them with the treatment and the development, and then they off and running. And like you said, they have a round table where they sit and depict scripts every day. When people send their scripts in, but by law, the Writers Guild have to tell you that they don't confer statutory protection, which means that they can't protect the work. So since they can't protect the work, what's that function? Their primary function, ma'am, is to create prior creation for writers when they steal people's works when it would no otherwise exist. And because they plugged into the court system, they get away with it. And that's why the Supreme Court, because I took the case all the way to the Supreme Court. The Supreme Court said, we're not going to rule in your case at this time. And I said, I want you to make a ruling. But they know if they make a ruling based on the lack of evidence that Time Warner produced, and I can counteract that, I'm supposed to get a jury trial. So, again, I appreciate you guys giving me a voice. As you know, Time Warner owns the media, not you guys, but they try to squash the stories and they try to bury the stories, and we have to continue to keep fighting to get the word out because we have to awaken people's eyes. And this is the only way we're going to be able to do it is by talking about it. It gives me an opportunity to tell my side of the story because Time Warner, I refuse to let them tell my story. I'm going to tell my story in my own words. You don't get to steal my screenplay, make hundreds of millions of dollars off of it, and then think that I'm just going to let it go. I'm not. And if we know anything about the justice system, we saw what happened when Al Gore beat President Bush and the Supreme Court stepped in and honored the Chads. And then 24 hours later, the law reverted back to the original law. I've never seen that again. But in my case, I had 3 judges. Explain to me why I had 3 judges. Because one judge telling me one thing, another judge telling me another thing, another judge telling me to use my Second Amendment complaint as my response to the defendant's motions to dismiss. And then when we do that, the second judge says, well, I'm going to ding you and I'm going to dismiss your case because you did that, even though we have a standing order telling us to do that. And so it was ridiculous. And so I had to maintain discipline. And I want you and your listeners to know how difficult it is when someone is adamantly trying to destroy you and violate your rights, and you have to be a man and be honorable and be just and look at these enemies in the face and maintain it with dignity and respect. And so when you look at my website, therealjohnq.com, you can actually see the similarities. And like Miss Sophia Stewart said, you can reach her at matrixterminator.com. Like she said, when you have a child, you're going to recognize your child the day it's born and 10 years from now. You're going to know your baby when you see your baby. Mm-hmm. And I know my script when I see it. And that's all I need to do to get a trial by jury. And they knew that if I would have got a trial by jury, I would have been awarded hundreds of millions of dollars. So they had to squash me and stop that at all costs. And then also, if you look at the other dynamic, when I go to court, and you see I won the oral argument as a non-attorney. How did I do that? Because my case was so strong. And if the Supreme Court had heard my case, which I submitted a writ for certiorari, then that would have changed the whole game. Because the big conglomerates, Time Warner, New Line Cinema, etc., would no longer be able to steal people's work and have the court's protection. The Writers Guild would no longer be able to be the conduit or the laundering mechanism to steal people's work. Ma'am, when I tell you this, and I'm telling you what God loves, so many people have reached out to me telling me their story about the Writers Guild, but they didn't have the money to fight them. They felt that they couldn't fight them. And I'm being an example. When they see my story, they say, wow, I could have fought them. I could have fought them. It was possible. So I'm just trying to show people what's possible. Whether I win or not, I've already won. I'm in LA talking to you guys. I've already won.
Well, yeah,
you
have, yeah. You have.
Yeah.
So I'm now. What have you? I mean, so far have they confirmed? Have you gotten them to admit that this is your script, or you're still fighting it? They still haven't acknowledged they're not acknowledging it yet. Is what is basically.
Time Warner, yes, ma'am, and I have a letter in my book. Time Warner acknowledged that the scripts were similar. Oh my God, I'm sorry, I didn't even tell you this. One of the elements for me to survive summary judgment is to prove that the scripts are similar. Do you know, ma'am, that the court ruled that the scripts were similar? And so this
Okay.
is how they dismiss my. Yes, ma'am. That's what's so crazy. They finally admitted that the scripts were similar. So if I have the original copyright, and ma'am, on my copyright, this is the expression that I put on the copyright. I said that this script is about an African American family who endured the pain and warning of a heart situation without insurance or warning. That's exactly what John Q was about. That's the expression that I put on my valid copyright. That copyright is worth hundreds of millions of dollars, and I know it. The judges and the judges in my court specifically issued an order saying yes, the screenplays were similar at a general level. My question to the court was they shouldn't be similar on no level. If you didn't study my script in earnest, if you didn't have access to my script, they shouldn't be similar on no level. And the fact that James Kern said it wasn't original to him. So that's a part of the RICO statute, because you illegally applied for a copyright when you knew it wasn't original to you, when you illegally usurped my work. And ma'am, I hope you're sitting down. And I always say that, but I hope you guys are sitting down, because do you guys know that after 2 or 3 years of litigation, Time Warner finally admitted that James Kearns never copyrighted John Q. Even though for 2 years in court he swore he did. After 2 years of court litigation, Time Warner says, well, James Kearns, and this is James Kearns speaking as well. He said, well, okay, you're right. You called me red-handed. I never copyrighted John Q. Time Warner Secretary Angela Clare copyrighted John Q. So my question was, well, how does Time Warner and New Line Cinema James Kearns should copyright credit if New Line Cinema Secretary copyrighted John Q? These demons will go to no end to protect stolen works, and I feel so much joy and so much pride, ma'am, to be able to fight them. So many people are afraid of Time Warner because they have $1 trillion. But I looked at it like this: I'm a grown man. I put my pants on just like you do, and I'm gonna fight you as hard as you are to try to hold me down and oppress me. Is how much harder I'm gonna fight to be vindicated. Now, ma'am, something that I want to share with you. I went to Time Warner Studios and I met with them, and this is how they got me. We watched the film, and we looked at my script, and we looked at James Kearns' script, and we compared it because I did an intrinsic examination. After about 2 hours at Time Warner Studios, we watched the film, we looked at the script, and they admitted. They said, yes, the scripts are similar, we stole your script. But what they was trying to do, and they said, we're going to tell, because part of my condition for the settlement was, I said, you guys are going to have to give me a credit on air. You're going to have to air my story and let me tell my story in my own words. Y'all don't get to tell my story and make money. That's crazy. And so I want to tell my own story in my own words on television, and I get full credit, and y'all got to cut me a check. They said, okay. But they never aired the story. They just wanted to know what I had against them so they could prepare for me in court. And then Denzel Washington says, yes, ma'am. And then Denzel Washington, in a conference with my lawyer, said, well, Mr. Tillman, please let me out of the case. I'll cut you a check because I don't have nothing to do with it. Yes, I directed it, and I did eat up your pain and suffering, so I want to do what's right. So I gave my lawyer a number. He said I can meet that number because to me, $5 million was nothing when you made almost $50 million. And my beef wasn't originally with you. So, I didn't want them to try to pit me against him because I didn't have nothing against this man. I just said, sir, with all due respect, you made money off my pain and suffering. You should sit down and break bread with me because there was no John Q unless I lived that experience. I'm the original source code. And Miss Sophia Stewart talks about being the source code at thematrixterminator.com. I'm the source code. So it starts with me. But, they said, well, James Kearns didn't copyright John Q. Angela Clare did. It was so ridiculous and egregious. I mean, ma'am, and also, when you look at my book, everything I'm saying, I validated in black and white. The court transcripts don't lie. the orders don't lie. Now, what I found extremely troubling is I had an attorney, and this is how my attorneys tried to give me at first, ma'am. If I may have a few more minutes.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, we're allowed to. We're going a little bit overtime tonight, so yes, please.
I appreciate you. I appreciate this because I got to get this off my heart. Thank you, ma'am. Let me say this: listen to me, ma'am. When I first found out about them stealing my movie, ma'am, I was in shock. It created such shock in all of my conscience, ma'am, that I had to shut my whole life down for almost 2 or 3 months, ma'am, after I saw the movie. The movie had already ran its course through the theaters, ma'am, and I didn't see it. It wasn't until one of my best friends, my brother Tremaine Harris, he saw the movie in the theater and told me, he was like, hey, you should go see this movie. It's a hard situation with Denzel Washington. I immediately started crying at that moment because I knew that was my work. And then when I finally saw the movie, I took my kids with me. And my children, man, were sitting there watching the movie with me. And my kid was like, Dad, did this happen to us? That shook me to my core. So for 3 months, ma'am, and while I was in the theater, I watched the movie like at least 6 or 7 times because I could not believe it. I was quoting the dialogue, the part when Denzel said, when the hospital told him to take his child home to die. I lived that. That's what the hospital told me. That's why I wrote it down. And I wrote it down because I did not want to become a negative person or hurt anybody during that critical stage in my life. So I felt writing it down would be the best way for me to channel my emotions so I could be a voice and so I could be a light and not be negative. And so I wrote that down. It happened to me, and they knew it. I got a letter from the hospital stating that. When Denzel said, I want you to transfer my kid to another hospital, I wrote that because I lived it. And in my book, I have the actual transfer order. I'm not playing with them. And so what they did, what Time Warner did was looked at my zip code. Excuse me, they looked at my zip code and said, oh, well, he lives in a poor community in Chicago in the Inglewood area. We could just steal this screenplay and we won't have any ramification. We'll just pay off the judges like we always do. We'll pay off the politicians like we always do. But no, I don't care about money because I worship the one, the creator, who created the tree that you make the money with. I would be a fool. I would be a fool to worship money instead of the one that created the money that they use as a mechanism for evil. It's the root of money that's the evil. That's the root of all evil, not the money itself. Because when God blessed me to be in my purpose, I'm gonna be in a position to help people like you guys at the station and all of them. I just did like 10. I'm on a book tour right now. I don't disclose the cities that I'm going to because I don't want them to be able to head me off. You know what I'm saying? So I keep everything appropriate. But I've already done about 10 interviews. I just did some newsprint interviews. I'm traveling, getting the word out. But I'm following the one that gives us the air to breathe and created the differences that we have. I love all people. I don't care what your color, nationality, or race is, even if you care that I'm a black man, even if the world cares that I'm black. It doesn't matter to me what our differences are. I focus on our similarities. And that's why I was heartbroken when I was in a court where their job is to protect my rights and they're protecting the conglomerate Time Warner and New Line Cinema. Yeah. But I'm not afraid because guess what? Bernie Madoff was a billionaire, and he had to serve justice. Martha Stewart, with all due respect, I don't think she should have went to jail, but she's a billionaire, and she had to pay her dues. And so Time Warner is going to pay their dues. New Line Cinema is going to pay their dues. It may not happen today, it may not happen tomorrow, but justice will be served. Because if enough of us galvanize and you uplift myself and Miss Sophia Stewart at MatrixTerminator.com, we'll be in a position to fight these giants because that's what they are. They do all kind of wizardry and sorcery to confuse you and to put this propaganda machine out to make us think it's okay to go bomb innocent women and children in other countries and try to take their resources, and then they turn it around when these people fight us back. And I don't want to go too far into that, but why should America be the only company?
You can go into it if you want to. That's fine. I've been
I
talking
want
about
to speak from the heart.
talking about.
Because, listen, why shouldn't other countries be able to defend themselves against us? Everywhere we go, we occupy. Why? We don't have a right to do that. And that's what America does. And so these corporations, they think that they can have a license to steal because they have the judges in their pocket. But I fought them head up. And y'all, please go to therealjohnq.com and click the audio button 1 and audio 2, and you will see me, a poor guy from Chicago, fighting a $1 trillion company. It is proven that Time Warner has assets in the trillions of dollars. That's a lot of money to get a lot of stuff done. And all I have is myself and the Most High. I'm plugged into the source. So I have more than $1 trillion. I worship the one who created the tree that y'all use to print the money to use as a mechanism to create racism, to create poverty. Why is it poverty and poor people and homeless people in this country when we have the greatest financial system in the world, but we use it for evil? And then we turn people on one another based off race. I don't like your color. I don't like that you're a woman. I don't like this or that about you, so I'm going to use these differences to keep you separated when we all have the same needs. We all want to be loved. We all want to be heard. We all want to be appreciated. And so, you know, I just had to fight them. And you know what? My family looks at me with pride. The people that I interview with have pride, and I feel good, like I'm out here doing a good deed. I just want to be a good citizen. You know, but unfortunately, the unfortunate reality is that this is a money game. You know, I spent over 6 figures fighting them, man. Now, if I could give you just a little background about myself real quick.
Sure.
Not only do I write screenplays, this is my second screenplay. I did another screenplay called The Nose of Men and Yes of God back in Chicago. I had a couple movie premieres, but John Q was the biggest thing that I've ever done. But in my personal life, I'm an engineer, and I invent educational tools. In fact, I invented an educational product called the Educational Electronic Baby Mat that teach babies how to read and infants how to read phonetically, because that's when the life cycle starts and the brain starts developing. Well, you know, I also invented a braille mat for blind individuals and blind babies.
Wow.
It comes in, yes ma'am. The mat comes in different languages: Chinese, Spanish, Arabic, Japanese. Because I'm no respecter person. I love mankind. I care about the human condition. But that money that I fought Time Warner with could have been money that I could have invested into that product to develop it, to get it out. So this thing, the rabbit hole goes way deeper. And I
was talking about a little bit earlier tonight about how, you know, when you are a writer or you're an artist and you do get a big break and you expect to get the money from that, or you want to have the money because that money is going to sustain you maybe for the rest of your life. And you can put it on other projects. So for them to cheat you like this is actually taking away from your contribution to the world, basically. Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am. And now it's up to you, myself, and your listeners. Please, guys, I want everybody to post, share my story. Feel free to friend me on Facebook. My name is Chitunda Tillman Sr. I'll spell it for you. CHITUNDA Tillman, TILLMAN Sr. SR. Friend me on Facebook. You can see all of the interviews I just did talking about this situation, because I need you to friend me on Facebook. I need you to support my project by purchasing my book. I'm never asking for a handout, just a hand up. If you purchase my book, if everybody purchased the book at therealjohnq.com, I'll be able to get made whole, at least to the fact where I can continue my battle against Time Warner. Because remember, lawyers are expensive. and I gotta have the right team. I'm putting together the dream team right now. It is costly, and the retainers are astronomical, but I'm gonna do it because I'm never giving up. Because I want my day in court. I want the jury to look me in my eye and see my story and hear me tell my story, and then put it up against what Time Warner says. Put it up against what Time Warner says as their originality claim, and then we'll go from there and decide. And you guys be the judge. I appreciate all of your listeners. You know what I'm saying? So you guys support my project, support the book, therealjohnq.com. Go to the audio 1 and 2. You can hear me stand up for my rights in court. You can hear Time Warner even admit Tom J. Ferber is New Line Cinema's lawyer. You can hear him actually admit in court that the company Evolution that made John Q wasn't even in existence until 98. 4 months after they had my script. Can you believe that? So really, because the story that they told in court was that James Kearns wrote John Q in 1993, sold it to Island Pictures in 1993. Island Pictures sold it to Columbia in 1993 and 1994, and it sat on Columbia's shelf for 6 years until 2000, when Evolution finally picked it up and made it. Now, you mean to tell me that this movie that made almost $300 million to date and more, passed through all of these companies and nobody ever copywrote it, when James Kearns copywrote 7 other things in the 1990s, from 1990 to 2000, man, James Kearns copywrote 6 or 7 other screenplays, and none of them was John Q. His meal ticket, his moneymaker, none of them was John Q. You see what I'm saying? None of those screenplays was John Q. And then Evolution, who actually made John Q in 1998, 4 months after they had my screenplay. And Time Warner lawyers slipped and said it in court, and it's on record. It's a part of the record now. Now, that's how God worked. He said, yeah, Evolution wasn't in existence until 1998. But we're not talking about Evolution. We're talking about Island. Exactly, dirtbag. Because James Kearns never sold John Q to Island in 93. Otherwise, he would have had a copyright for John Q in 93. John Q wasn't made till after 98 because Evolution wasn't created until 98, 4 months after they had my script. That's how deep the rabbit hole goes. And then they create these fraudulent articles from Variety.com saying that John Q was a screenplay in existence, but even though in court, Time Warner said the reason why we didn't copyright John Q is because no work had been done on it. So somebody lying.
Oh, yeah. Well, looking at your website too, you have the dialogue written out and the different scenes that people can watch on it, and I guess like the comparison of the similarities of your script and then John Kearns or James Kearns' script. So that's there too, and you're very specific about it. I'd like to go into a little bit more about your book. The No's of Men, the Yes of God. Now, that is this, and it's based on a true story. Is this now? The book is basically, is it about this, about your case?
Yes, ma'am. It's about 60% of the case, 40% about my life, because I want to tell my story my way, not just about the case. Because as I told you, I'm about social justice, and I'm about the greater good. So my research predominantly is I work in African American poor communities, Latino populations, Spanish populations, where poverty rate is 90%. And I work in those communities teaching math and reading because I wrote a math book and I wrote a reading book. And so my way of giving back is working in these impoverished communities to help uplift people out of poverty, because the only way out of poverty is through education. And so I find it very troubling that the powers that be are trying to stop me on every level through my outreach and through the book, trying to stop my funding and my resource, because they know if I get funded, I'll be able to fight them, and the whole house of cards to come down. And so part of the book is telling about my childhood and why I'm so strong, and where I got my will, and my strong will, where I got my roots from. I talk about my parents and the strength that they gave me. I talk about my children who motivated me to do good and be a good citizen. Because let me explain something to you. And I think Miss Sophia Stewart encapsulated this when she said, when you talk about the matrix is the womb.
Yes.
Well, because that is true, and she's the oracle, because the matrix is the womb, and when I brought these children into the world, my job as the father, as the king, is to oversee their life and nurture them. And I did that. And as a result, the Most High gave me this vision, right? So everything that I ever did or invented was because of my children, because of the insight that they gave me, because of the need that they had that I had to feel. And that's why I won my case, because I'm happy. They tried to destroy me, but they couldn't. I'm one of God's creatures. And I told him that if you bless me and put me in position, I give you the praise. But I'm not a fan of religion, and I want to make that clear, because religion divides us. It doesn't matter what you believe, as long as you believe in something outside of yourself. That's all that really matters. But we as man try to tear other people down based on religion when we have no heaven and hell to send them to. So I focus on what I can control. I focus on trying to be a good citizen. And now my quest is to raise money. And so when we talk about the book, what I like about the book, ma'am, is I have all the court transcripts where the judge says it doesn't matter that you have a copyright. It doesn't matter if they had access. It doesn't matter if they're similar. And it doesn't matter if you're a citizen. Even though the law, and I'm gonna quote a court case, Vice versus Rule, 1991. This is a Supreme Court case, and it specifically said originality is the cornerstone of copyright protection. So if it's original to me and it's the cornerstone of copyright protection, then my work should be protected. James Kern said it wasn't original to him. So that automatically nullifies him with this copyright. And so a part of the RICO is because I survived the elements of summary judgment, it's illegal for the judge to say, I'm going to ignore the fact that you had original copyright, the fact they had access and they're similar and you're a citizen. It's not the judge's place to ignore that. And because he did, you violated my rights. And you did that to protect your master, Tidewater, and New Line Cinema. But they're not my master. So I'm not afraid. And I encourage your listeners not to be afraid and to support my cause, because the only way I'm going to continue to fight them is through money and resources. Because just like eventually Bernie Madoff had to pay his dues, Time Warner is eventually going to have to be held accountable. In my book,
Time Warner isn't.
actually,
I mean, Time Warner has the Eye of Horus as a symbol, doesn't it? Isn't that Time Warner?
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah,
yes,
the Eye of Horus.
That's
Yeah.
the Eye of Horus.
Yeah.
And it's interesting that Miss Sophia Stewart has the third eye, because the Eye of Horus and the third eye are two different symbols. Because one is of inner peace. The third eye is that intuition. The Eye of Horus is the negative eye of the second eye. So I just try to align myself for positive people, and I'm extremely grateful that she wrote the foreword to my book, because change is coming. Change is coming. Because just like, you know what I'm saying, all of the greats take a fall, Bernie Madoff, Martha Stewart, I could go on and on. You know what I'm saying? They are eventually held accountable. And so
soon to be Hillary Clinton. I'm sorry.
So to be, you know what, and I'm glad on one thing, I'm glad that that through this election the swamp was drained, but at the same time, I'm not happy with the current policies of this administration. I mean, you have a lot of nerve to say you don't want somebody coming in this country and have your family was not from this country.
Well,
so
that's true.
The hypocrisy knows no bounds.
Yeah. There seems to be a lot of hypocrisy everywhere, doesn't there? Isn't there?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
Yeah. Well,
So
I
I
really
hope you
want to
I
thank you
hope
for
you
coming
get the
coming
book.
on tonight. Oh, yeah, I would. I'm definitely wanting to get the book, and again, for the listeners out there, you can go to therealjohnq.com and take a look at what's going on. And I want to thank you very much for sharing your story. Or not like your story with us. I mean, it's more than a story. Your story of truth, and it's so refreshing. And I just want to say this to you, to hear where your heart comes from, and the place that you were writing your material from, your the movie from, the point that you're making, and the work that you do in the community, and what motivates you to do what you're doing. To say
Yes,
that
ma'am.
you're from the source, from the real tree, it's not about the money. It's about and it is that way. It's funny because I was kind of making that point before you came on, that most people that are artists or doing stuff, we're just creating. Like it's not really about the money. It's
Creative. Exactly.
yeah,
Exactly.
yeah. It's like you have a story. Your story of you. I mean, every single child, every single person should be able to have their heart replaced, or
There
taken
you
care
go.
of. We shouldn't have to bow down to big pharma or to insurance companies. That's a disgusting travesty on humanity. And
Yep.
that's a very, very important point to put up in the movie. That was the whole point of what you wrote based on your personal experience. It's not right for some corporation like Time Warner and these phony, really phony people out there caught stealing your material and then making a profit off of it without you
Exactly.
see the day of
And
light.
and if you notice, eventually I'll have the name recognition of Jimmy Kimmel, but he endured the same situation as relates to the heart, basically. But it just blew it to the forefront. So now everyone's talking about John Q. And so I have to step up and claim what's mine. And I don't need their permission to take ownership. If you look at my website, Denzel Washington made 56 million dollars off me. He's on my website. His scenes are on my website because I don't need no court or no police or no FBI to take ownership of something that belongs to me. And so I took possession of it, and I'm making money off of it. Now, can I just share one last thing?
Sure.
All right, let me give you, and let me read a quote from Hillary real quick while I look for this. Hillary said, if you take people's rights away in incremental amounts, small amounts, by the time it's over, they won't even realize that their rights was violated, and when they do, it's going to be too late. Now, this is how they got Denzel out of the case. Denzel Washington sat down with my lawyers and said, I'm going to come in to tell me the check. So we had to amend our complaint. We had to do a second amended complaint. And this proves the RICO case. The second amended complaint was dismissed, but it was approved to let Denzel Washington out. And you can't do that. You can't do that. You can't dismiss my case. You can't dismiss my second amended complaint. And then per my second amended complaint, let Denzel Washington out of the case. Ergo RICO.
Oh.
See what I'm saying? So all
Uh-huh.
of these components and all of these tentacles were working against me. Now here's my federal here's the FBI's investigating my case right now. Let me give you the complaint number. The reference number is 200919529. Hold on for a sec.
Okay. All right.
Sorry. Did you get that?
That's okay. Yeah.
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 So that's my FBI court case reference number, because I'm not playing with Time Warner, and I'm gonna get my justice. And so when the feds called me, the FBI called me, which is in my book, and I have a copy of all of this. I'm substantiating all of this. The FBI said, when I asked as a time frame, when they're gonna go after these people, they said, we're working on it and we don't have to tell you. We're gonna just let you know. And I appreciated that. I mean, I just want you to say that sarcasm for Time Warner and New Line Cinema. Go get them. But you see what happens when the feds want to investigate.
I hear a little kitty in the background.
Yeah, that's a baby.
That's a baby.
You can tell that no, I'm in the lobby of the hotel, so it's a family checking in. But
okay, I thought. Wait,
No, that was a kitten. It was a kitten.
we have a kitten. There's a little kitten in the studio. Yeah.
But the feds are on it, and that's the reference number.
This is Truth Cat, remember?
Yeah, but again, guys, and like I said, I really appreciate it.
Well,
I really appreciate you guys interviewing me, and I would love to talk about this again in the upcoming couple of weeks. You guys let me know what's good for you, and I would love to continue to dig deeper into my story. TheRealJohnQ.com.
That would be wonderful. Thank you so much for being on the Freedom of Joy show tonight here on Truth Cat Radio. I'm glad you made it, and that we got to have this conversation and get this information out there tonight. So we did it, despite all of the flights and planes and all that kind of stuff. Best of luck to you. Please do keep in touch with me too as well, just off and on, and keep us up to date on what on your success, because I'm just going to say it's going to be a success. Justice will be served, and these people are definitely going down right now. I think we're shifting into a more positive timeline here, and it's people like you who are standing up for your rights and taking action and making it happen and exposing these people. So I commend you for your courage, and best of wishes to you.
Thank you. Thank you, guys. TheRealJohnQ.com. Thank you, guys, and I appreciate y'all hard work y'all doing in the community too. So you guys have a blessed day.
You too. That was my guest, Chatunda Tillman Sr. Again, the real author of he's got therealjohnq.com. Check him out, support him, and share this video and get the word out there. Thank you so much for staying with us tonight and listening to the Freedom of Joy show. I know we went over time. I want to thank Stephen D. Kelly for letting me go over time as well. I appreciate the little extra time to get this going. Thank you for listening, and good night.